Describe your bike ride that you went on.
Well, I've been riding a bike since I was in my 40s. I'm 73 now. And then we moved up here 4 years ago from Atlanta, and I probably haven't touched this bicycle in a full 10 years. And starting this spring, I decided I wanted to go on some kind of a trip. I didn't know how far or where or how long. And the more I thought about it, and I rode a lot out in the east part of Henderson County, which is just beautiful, good bike riding. You can get flat rides, you can get some mountain challenges that are more than I can handle. And as things evolved, I got into sort of halfway shape and decided I would take a long solo trip. And that's what I did, from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Minneapolis up through the upper peninsula of Michigan, about 750 to 800 miles.
And how many days did it take?
I was gone 27 days, I think, which includes rest days and some enforced rest days. I spent 3 days in one town because I was waiting for a package that my wife had sent me with new maps. Maps take up a lot of room and they weigh a lot, surprisingly, because you carry very detailed county maps. So I had 2 different resupply points to get her to mail those maps to me, and they didn't come, so I had to hang out in this town for a couple of days. I guess the first 7 to 10 days, it rained every day. And riding in the rain is not too bad. It's getting ready for it. It's, especially if you're camping, you set up camp in the rain is a mess, and even worse is to break camp in the morning when all your gear gets wet. It's hard to keep your sleeping bag and everything dry. So that's a mess. I had counted on camping probably at least half to 3/4 of the trip. But after a couple of days of camping, I sort of changed my mind on that.
And tell about some of the interesting people you met along the way here.
I met a lot of nice people, a lot of interesting people. Probably the highlight was, it could have been a bad day, but it turned out to be a good day, and that was way up in northern Wisconsin, about, halfway, 2/3 of the way through the trip. And I broke a spoke out in the middle of nowhere. And on a touring bike, if you break a spoke, you got a heavy load, you just stop, because if you break one, the odds are very high that very quickly you'll break 2 or 3, and then you'll just trash the whole wheel. So I stopped near a farmhouse on a paved road, back road in northern Wisconsin, and took all my gear off the bike, set it upside down so that people could see I wasn't just stopping there for a rest stop, and then figured that the next town that would have a bike shop would be Rhinelander, and that was around 70 miles away. So, and the road I was on was a straight shot into Rhinelander, so I proceeded to hitchhike. And the first ride was with a bisexual preacher, and he was just a really nice guy, and he had some interesting stories to tell. It was a fellow I probably wouldn't have met in my normal circle of acquaintances in Hendersonville. But we talked a fair amount about how his adult children from 2 previous marriages reacted to his current lifestyle, where he was had been living with a male partner for about 6 years. And it was very open discussion and very interesting to me. And the guy took me probably 10 miles out of his way to let me off in a place where I'd have a chance of getting another good ride. And the second guy that picked me up was also interesting. He was of Finnish descent. A lot of Finns settle in the upper peninsula of Michigan and around there. And he has a totally unpronounceable last name. We were riding along in his pickup, and he had the window down. So the wind noise was there. I'm half deaf. I noticed he had hearing aids. He couldn't hear anything, so we're shouting each other for an hour probably at least. But like the first guy, he was so nice. He took me at least 20 miles out of his way and dropped me off right at the bicycle shop in Rhinelander. So that was some of the interesting people. Others were just people I never met, but they give you the high five or thumbs up. At least twice I was pedaling along on a straightaway, and people would come in from an intersecting road, and they were at a stop sign, and I passed them, and they both yelled out the window, one in Michigan, one in Wisconsin, "Way to go," or something like that. And that was an emotional high for at least half a day, just to keep you going.
And when you're on the road with cars and everything, did you have any kind of close calls or anything?
Oh, yeah, on some of the busier highways. I never had any problems as far as people intentionally. I've had here in Henderson County, although the drivers are great, I've had one or two teenagers get out of line, but that comes with the territory. But on the trip, that didn't happen. But the biggest problem with vehicles on busy stretches of the roads in certain parts of Michigan and in Wisconsin, they had a logging industry was heavy there, and they had a lot of turkey plants where they processed turkeys. Well, the logging industry throws off wood chips and as well as logs. And a truck carrying a wood chips is like a regular semi, except it's much higher. And for whatever aerodynamic features are there, when one of those high semi-type trucks went by, the winds, I really had to hold on with both hands and really focus because you could feel it. You can feel a semi, but they're usually not too bad. But those wood chip trucks were really dangerous.
And I noticed on some of your photos there was a parade and stuff like that.
Yes.
And were there any other big events that you were
Not
a part of?
Not big events. There was one place I went through a town, and coming up they had their annual flea roast. Now, you tell me what a flea roast is. But that seemed to be the cultural highlight of that little town in western Michigan. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the flea roast. But that little, it was a Labor Day parade in a tiny little town in Wisconsin. Population was 300 and something, and I added one more. And it was just an everyday garden variety community parade. But for whatever emotional reason, I just really got into that. It was just wonderful. And the number of people watching the parade was at least 3 times the population of the town. So it had to be the big event of the year there.
Do you see yourself going on another bike ride like this?
Yeah, my wife permitting. She was very supportive on this trip. She was very helpful, and we talk almost every day. Sometimes I get into cell phone areas where they had no cell phone connection. But she helped me on the resupplies and was very encouraging.